Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Season 2 of Sanity Symphony Podcast, where your story is our soundtrack. I know it's been a long time since our last episode, but we're back with more special guests and more insightful stories. And today, I'm joined with a very special guest. Some of you may know his name if you grew up during the Ruthless Aggression era. He hails from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Mr. Ken Anderson. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Anthony. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it.
Yes, sir. Now, at the start of your career, who was Ken Anderson before and during the moment you wanted to become a professional wrestler?
Um, you know, I watched when I first started watching wrestling, it was like 99. No, it was like 97 when Austin was on his initial run up to WrestleMania 14. And and I always thought like I was connected with Austin because I thought he was like a great actor. I thought like that guy, I believe him. He just the way that he carried himself, the way that he spoke, I believed everything. And then I would watch some other guys and think like, they're, you know, some bad acting. Wrestling's always been guilty of some cheesy, corny backstage acting and stuff like that. And then I always just like, I felt like I could do that. And I just always wanted to, I've always been into acting. I've always studied it. I've taken acting classes. I was involved in plays and play acting when I was in high school and even after high school a little bit. And obviously I did the movie when I was in WWE. I've done some other, and it was just something that I always wanted to, and when I always wanted to do it. And then when I was trying to figure out who the wrestler Ken Anderson was, I had an incident where I had a phone call with a friend of mine, like one of my closest friends, who I had just broken up with this girl and I didn't want to be with her anymore, right? Like I was done. But I found out like the day after I broke up with her, my best friend was like hanging out with her. And I was just like, I felt betrayed by it, right? And so I contacted him, I called him, and I had a conversation with him. And my wrestling trainers and some of the guys that I had become friends with that were training with me were in the room and they were just rolling on the floor laughing at some of the stuff that I was saying and the way that I was saying it. And when I hung up the phone, my trainer was like, if you ever have a question or like of who your character needs to be in pro wrestling, it's that right there. Remember this moment. And that just always stuck with me. And it was always like, my character is that's how I handle adversity. Like when I'm pissed off, this is the way that I act. So I was able to, I think the best acting is being able to recall your own life experiences and the emotions that you felt in those moments and sort of relive them.
Yes, sir. I love that. And during those times, aside from the issue you just named, were there any other mental health struggles you went through while training with Eric Hammers prior to getting signed?
Um, no, I don't think so. Other than just I did it for 6 years. And I struggled financially. I was like, every spare dollar that I got went to new gear, supplements, gym memberships, that kind of stuff, food. Because like when you're bodybuilding or whatever, like you need to eat a lot and you need to eat certain foods. And unfortunately in this country, eating healthy is way more expensive than eating crappy food. So that's the only thing that I really experienced, and I guess that that obviously brings mental turmoil to the table. But so and like in throughout that whole process, like there were times where I was just like, how much longer can I do this before okay, this isn't working out for me. I need to maybe do something else. And to be honest, like I was really close towards the end. As I said, I was doing it for 6 years, and I kept having dark matches, and I would have extra work for the WWE, and I would have these great outings, and everybody, the producers of those matches would say, great work, great job. Sorry, kid, we don't have anything for you at the moment. And I was just like, what do I need to do? I want to get hired. And I remember having a conversation with my mom where my mom was like, how much longer can you do this before you decide to maybe, go back to school or do something else?
Yes, sir. And I read that, on some articles that prior to getting signed, there were some chances of you possibly getting a TNA contract, but communications led to the opportunity just going out the window, basically.
Yep. So I at the time that I was getting extra work for WWE, I was also getting TNA extra work. And one time I even got a ECW.
Oh,
I
wow.
was I was given the opportunity, but it never turned into anything because like it used to be that guys would just show up. So like ECW or WWE would come into town, and there were guys that would just show up and try to get in the back door and say, "Hey, I've got my gear here. Can I just be an extra?" And I remember the time where I was told, Simon Diamond specifically said there was a show in Green Bay, and he specifically said, "Show up, I'll get you in." That day, there was like 30 other guys that showed up to do the same thing, and so they just said, "We're not taking anybody in today." Um, but uh, but yeah, I'm sorry. What was the initial question?
Just like the basically, how come the TNA contract didn't go through
Oh,
before signing
and
with
then
WWE?
yep, yep. And then so I went to do a TNA. I remember we were at the Nashville Fairgrounds, and then afterwards, all the boys went out to Bar Nashville, and I bumped into Jeff Jarrett there. Jeff was out kind of hanging out with the boys, and we got into a really lengthy discussion. And he was like, I've seen you here before. I like your work. I like your look. I have an idea. I think you could be good for this faction that I'm starting." And it was a faction that he had started. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember Chad Collier was involved in it, and it was these guys that wore kind of like black, all black. They were almost like what the Shield became, what the Shield was, but for Jeff Jarrett specifically. And then, he gave me his number, said, call me. And I called him and called him and called him and texted him, and to no avail. And it's just, it was never a personal thing. I never took it personally. It's just the way that the business operates. Everybody's busy. There's so much, e- everybody only has like so many hours in a day, and this is the stuff that needs to occur. This is the stuff that I need to happen, and the other stuff is so I just never took it personally.
Yes, sir. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't get to ask this. You were a part of Eddie Guerrero's last match on SmackDown in November of 2005. And with time and distance, how do you emotionally carry being a part of that moment in wrestling history? And is there anything you learned from Eddie backstage that still stays with you beyond the ring to this day?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's I struggle to find the words always to when this question comes up because it comes up a lot. And you know, I I hate that Eddie is has passed, right? Like I wish that hadn't occurred. The fact is that it's crazy to me that I was the guy that everybody remembers forever, that I was the guy that had his last match. And the way that match occurred, the him like basically the last thing he did was what he was so famous for: lie, cheat, and steal. That the chair spot that
Yes.
is still done to this day. Like people still emulate that. I've seen different variations of that spot. Oftentimes on the anniversary of his death, you'll see independent wrestlers do a variation of that on an independent show. So it's really it's amazing, and I'm very, very honored. Like nobody else can say that. Nobody else can say that I have Eddie's last match. And as far as like, I definitely learned stuff from him. Eddie was very, very giving with his time and energy and his knowledge. He was of the mindset that we can all be good. And if everybody backstage is good at what we do, the show is better overall. Um, so he was never like a gatekeeper. He was always somebody that was, I would come back through the curtain. I wouldn't even have to find him. He would be there. He would say, "Come here for a second. This. You should have done this. Think about this next time." And also one of my fondest experiences with him was we went to breakfast one morning. I've told this story before, so I apologize if you've heard it before. Some of your viewers have heard it, but we went to like a Bob Evans on a Sunday, right around noontime, so right around when church is getting out.
Listen.
And there was an hour wait, and the host, recognized us and said, "Hey, I got you guys. Come on." And Eddie said, "Hey, man," he just quietly pulled him aside and said, don't treat us any differently. Like these people, they want to eat breakfast just like we do. They're waiting. We can wait patiently. We can, you said what? It's an hour and 45 minutes, whatever. We can wait that time. Don't treat people differently just because you think that they're famous or whatever. And like, it was a really cool moment. It really showed Eddie's true character.
Yeah, based off of like past interviews of several wrestlers and some stories from like documentaries, I always knew that Eddie was like a real down to earth person and always put others before him.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you had a chance to have a rivalry with The Undertaker. So what did it mean to you mentally and professionally to be able to share the ring with someone who's looked up to as, one of the locker room leaders in WWE?
When he initially approached me, because like he pulled me aside at a house show and said, "Hey, I saw what you did with Batista at the Great American Bash, and I believe that you and I can make some money. And I'm going to go talk to the boss about it." And then he did. And he approached me, I think, the following week and said, "Hey, just so you know, we're going to get like 3 pay-per-views out of this. We're going to go into a long-term program." And we ended up being, for all intents and purposes, married to each other for an entire year. It was a combination, it was like MVP, me, Kane, Taker, and Batista, kind of some form or fashion. We got, we did get the 3 pay-per-views out of it. We got the first blood match. We got the last ride match. We had our first match, which was a no stipulation. And it was just like when he said it, I was just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. And then the first night that we worked was on a house show in Oklahoma City. And first I approached him and I said, what do you want to do tonight? And he said, "We're just going to call it in the ring. Just listen to me." Now, sometimes when you go into a scenario, when you go into a match, you're a little more nervous. Like, okay, we don't know exactly what's going to happen here. Hope for the best. Hopefully, you rise to your training. So if you've been trained effectively, like you're gonna do okay in those scenarios. But I just knew that I was in the ring with literally one of the greatest of all time, and that he wasn't going to make himself look bad. Therefore, he wasn't going to make me look bad. And all I needed to do was follow his instruction and do that. He says, "Punch me." I need to make that punch as snappy, as big, because he's the Undertaker. I got to give him something that he wants to sell, that he's willing to sell for me. If I give him a crappy punch, he's going to go, "Oh, man, like I can't sell that." You don't. So I just knew that I just needed to do my stuff, and I just had a great experience. But then I'm standing in the ring. I do my intro, finish my introduction, and the lights go out for the first time, and I hear that gong and that initial simmer from the people, and it's just like I got goosebumps. How did I get here? I remember thinking, like, did I get here? Just crazy, crazy to me.
I can imagine the goosebumps when you first hear the gong and the lights are going out, just from you
Well,
standing there.
you know how you feel. You've been in the arena before, right? Like
Yeah,
now imagine you're standing in the center of the ring and he's coming to wrestle you. It's just like amplifies that
exactly.
feeling.
And my favorite match in that rivalry also was Armageddon. And I also heard that when you guys were on like the stage area, that you could see gorilla position and hear Vince like yelling during as the match is going on.
Well, so they had at one point, it's kind of a funny story. It's kind of a lengthy story, but like we're putting together, Taker and I oftentimes, even for the pay-per-view matches, even when we were doing SmackDown tapings and stuff, we would kind of like map out a few, like, hey, we'll go over by the announce table and we'll do this. And then, in that particular match, the last ride match, there's the scaffolding. And then, we walked through what we were going to do there. But everything else in between was just sort of on the fly, sort of improv.
Mhm.
Well, we're standing there by that scaffolding thinking, what are we going to do? And Taker was like, I could choke slam you off there. That'd be impressive. And we knew that we had access to some big crash pads and stuff. Um, and we called Vince happened to be walking by. And I remember the producer for that match was Michael Hayes. So it's me, Michael, and Vince and Taker. And Michael says, we're thinking about having Kennedy, like Taker choke slams him off there. And Vince he looked up and he goes, it would be far more impressive if Taker went off there. And Taker just looked at Vince like,
Really?
and then Vince goes, you want me to go up there and try it first? I can go up there and do it first if you're scared. And then Taker was like, no, I got it. I'm good. So then we walked through all that. As I said, he's landing on a couple crash pads. There were two foam crash pads that were stacked up. And on the day, which on the day refers to like in the moment, like when we're actually doing it. Taker goes off because I pushed him off, right? He went for a choke slam. We had a little scuffle. He ends up going off. I pitched him off the side. And the jib, the crane cam came and shot straight down, looking straight down onto this. You could see he's laying on a mattress essentially. And I remember just hearing Vince, who was practically right underneath me, going, God damn it, got to a different shot. What are you doing? And when you watch it back, they stay on that shot for a really long time. And then the funny thing is they cut away from it, but they go back to it. So Vince he was having a conniption.
And I feel bad for The Undertaker because you can imagine the amount of ribs Vince had pulled on him throughout his whole career, man.
Yeah, definitely. And if Taker, you see there's a video. One of my favorite videos on YouTube is the one where they're trying to get him to do the spinneroonie,
Yep.
right? And then Vince comes out, and I believe that was a Vince rib where he said, "Get him to do the spinneroonie."
Hmm.
I think Vince actually came out and did it, right? Like
Yeah, he did.
terribly,
Um,
but
so internally, how devastated were you when you found out about your misdiagnosis in 2007 after winning the Money in the Bank briefcase? And do you consider it a life lesson now?
I really wasn't that devastated, to be honest with you, because it's a storyline, right? Like they can change anything at any time. And I always felt like, okay, this particular storyline isn't going to play out. But when I'm back, because they told me that I was going to be gone for like 8 or 9 months. And then when I come back, we'll pick back up where we left off. and they'll write something else, and I'll get there eventually. So I really wasn't too devastated about it. Um, yeah, but looking back on it, it is pretty frustrating that that really changed that. I was literally a few days away from, because like we had already talked about it. We had already discussed. I went into Vince's office after SmackDown the previous week because SmackDown was a tape show. And he told me then, like, we're gonna put the title on you next week. You're gonna cash in that briefcase. So I'm on my way to do that, and I get injured like that. And then to find out it was a misdiagnosis was just crazy.
I think I could speak on behalf of a majority of the fans who grew up watching the Ruthless Aggression era. We definitely had a lot of high hopes for you in that time. We
Mm,
definitely wanted to see you become world champion. We felt like it was well deserved.
mm. No, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And from your transition from WWE to TNA, was there a mental reset you had to go through? And were there old expectations that followed you when you made that transition?
Mm, no, not really. At the time I was I really had a chip on my shoulder about the way that things ended in WWE, and I blamed everybody but myself at the time. So I don't think that I ever fully took responsibility until way later. And I'd already been gone from TNA. So even during that time period when I was at TNA, I still was like, I was wrongfully fired from WWE. And um but I did have an axe to grind, and I had something that I wanted to prove, and I felt like I was able to do that at TNA.
Now that you train wrestlers, what mental traits matter more than talent as far as things that you wish someone could have emphasized to you early in your career?
Just, if you never take no for an answer, and man, it's frustrating to me at times because if I had access to somebody who had the experience that I have, I would have, and like that person, because I always tell my students, like, I'm available to you 24/7 practically. Like, you can text me anytime. I'll try to help you out as much as I can. And it's amazing how many people don't do that. But yet those people will say like, "Oh, I'm passionate. I love the business. It's my dream." But they're not willing to take the actual steps necessary to, um, yeah, I just wish that I had access to a school that was, 52 weeks a year. We offer 4 nights a week. And also I offer open gyms for my students. So like if you're one of my students and you want to come in on a Saturday, here, here's the key card. Here's the code to the door. Come on in.
Any young wrestlers out there watching this, if you're interested in getting started somewhere, you can reach out to Mr. Ken Anderson.
Yep. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
if a young wrestler was struggling mentally but feels like speaking up could cost them opportunities, what would you tell them?
It depends on the scenario. Sometimes you just gotta, it's like what hills are you what hills are worth dying on? Sometimes it's not worth an argument. Not everything is worth going to war over. And I just say, like, even with students who they sometimes will experience frustration. They'll be like, I had this match this weekend with this guy and he was kind of difficult putting the match together. At which point I just say, like, just don't argue. It doesn't even matter if that person has like tons of experience or little experience. If they're being difficult, just remember it's just one time. It's just one match. So, okay, this guy's obviously being a pain in the ass. What do you want to do? And then just try to do that to the best of your ability. Because like if you guys butt heads, the match is going to be terrible from beginning to end. But at least if one person is an adult in the room, you got a better outcome or better chance of a positive outcome out of that person. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And just chalk it up as that was a terrible experience, but I learned something from it. You can learn something from every interaction.
I love that. And how do you personally define success now at this point in your career?
Um, I guess it's just like, I don't believe in an afterlife necessarily, right? I don't believe that you go to a special place but I think the afterlife is being remembered. And I guess like, if I can be remembered for at least a couple of years after I pass, like I'll have mission accomplished.
I definitely feel like you will always be remembered for your legacy. You've been United States champion, Money in the Bank winner, world champion in TNA, along with biggest rivalries that you still tell stories, amazing stories to this day. So for
Yeah.
sure you'll have a memorable career and life as well.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And one last question I ask all my guests at the end of every interview. During times of low moments or anytime you're just feeling down, who is that one artist or album you turn to during those moments?
I'm a big Eminem fan, man. Like
Oh,
Eminem's like just his fuck you. You know what I mean?
yes, sir. Yes,
Like
sir.
facing adversity. Like I think he's just a great artist for like he's faced every bit of adversity and overcome it. And he speaks about it. So, that's really I think so many people can like relate to. So I guess like just off the top of my head, that would be the one that stands out. Like when I'm feeling angry or down or whatever, like, and I hear that, it inspires me.
I'm so glad you said that because believe it or not, he's my favorite artist of all time too.
Really, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's he's amazing. It really is.
And you explained it best. Like he's the best artist to turn to when it comes to releasing anger,
Yep.
relatable issues in life, because
Yep.
he just knows how to sonically get it out and it sounds great and connects with the audience.
Yep. He's really like he thinks about things differently too, right? Like he's able to like how many times I feel like Dave Chappelle is the same way
Correct.
in the way that it's like he'll say something and I'll go like I've never been able to like articulate what he just said, but I feel that exact same way. I feel like Eminem has a really good way of doing that through his lyrics.
What's your favorite album of his?
Um, I would say I don't remember the particular name, but it was the one with um the Stan.
Marshall Mathers LP.
Is it Marshall Mathers LP? Yeah.
Great album, man. To this day,
Hmm.
it's diamond and still holds
Yeah.
records to this day. Unbreakable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that concludes another episode of episode 1, season 2 of Sanity Symphony Podcast, where your story is our soundtrack. And we want to thank Mr. Ken Anderson for taking the time to share his insightful stories where you guys could possibly resonate, connect, and be inspired by it. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.